What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream, and I'm super excited for today's project because we are starting a new project. Today we're gonna build a Pinterest clone, and I know a lot of you were asking for a long time to get into the Pinterest clone because it has its particularities, especially the way it renders the feed, like the pictures there, that grid view, but more on that later. So this is going to be a beginner-friendly React Native tutorial, and we're going to cover everything like from initializing our project to building our UI, and then we're going to also implement the backend, but that's next week. So let's have a look at what exactly we're going to build, and we're going to start, of course, with a home feed, where we will render a lot of pins. And the interesting thing about the home feed, as you can see here, is the layout that Pinterest is using, where it's not a grid view, it's not like rows and columns, it's two separate like columns, and there is no gap between the posts, so it's pretty interesting, like quite challenging, but we're gonna implement this type of layout together today in the tutorial. So next we're gonna develop the pin page, and whenever we press on one of those pins from the home screen, we're gonna see an enlarged image with all the details about that post. After that, we're gonna implement the profile page, so to render the information about one user. And here we're gonna implement, when we will get to the backend, we will implement the features of liking some pins, and you'll be able to also see them here on your profile page. And the last page that we're gonna build today is gonna be the page to upload a pin, where you'll be able to pick an image, write some more details about the post, and after that submit everything. So this is the plan. These all screens that you see here, and mostly exactly as you see here, we're gonna build today in this video in 2 to 3 hours. So we're gonna build everything using React Native, and we're gonna build a iOS application and Android application at the same time by using React Native. We're gonna use Expo to generate our project and to help like with our development, because with Expo it's much easier to get started, and it's much easier to develop this React Native application, especially this one. This is the plan for today. Next week, we're gonna get into the backend, and we're gonna implement a serverless backend for our application, for the Pinterest, to make it fully functional, front end and the backend. We're gonna do that using a service called nhost, and using this nhost service, we're going to implement authentication. We're going to implement a GraphQL API, real-time GraphQL API, which is going to be very performant. And also we're going to implement the storage, where to store all the images for our pins. But more on that in the next episode, which is going to happen next Friday, 8th of April, at the same time. Yes, at the same time as today. So this video is this project, this build is sponsored by nhost, and nhost provides serverless backend for web and mobile application. And why I lost? Okay, and it's very easy to build a backend using nhost, and it provides you with a real-time database that can be SQL, or like on top of that you can put a GraphQL API, you can implement authentication, file storage, emails, and a lot more. We're gonna see how easy it is to implement this backend with nhost in the next live stream, when we will get to implementing the backend for this Pinterest clone. So what I like about nhost, it's free to get started, to create an account, and they also have like a free package that offers very good free tier limit, and you can sign up without any credit card, which is really nice. So follow this link, create an account, you can play around with an host, and next week we're gonna get into more details and we're gonna implement everything ourselves. Now back to our project. Before we get started, I have prepared the asset bundle the same way we are doing always. So you will find all the files that you would need to develop this application to make it easier for you, like the dummy data. This PDF presentation is there, some images if there will be any, and more useful information that you need for following along and building this application yourself. As well, you need the Expo environment set up because we're going to use Expo. And yeah, it's quite easy to set up. You can follow this URL. And I have also done a video on the channel how to set up Expo environment. After we're done, we can get started. So let's roll the intro. All right. How's it going, guys? Let's cheer everyone who is joining live. Hello, guys. Following from Africa. That's nice. Hello from Argentina. Hello, David. All right, guys. So we have a lot of things to do today, and I suggest to get started. And we are gonna start by initializing our application using the Expo CLI. So for that, we will need to open a terminal. So let me do that. Zoom. And let's go to my projects folder. And here, let's do Expo init to initialize a new project. And let's give it a name, Pinterest. Let's press enter. And from these templates that Expo is offering us, let's choose the third one, the tabs with TypeScript. I'm not interested in TypeScript in this tutorial, but I want this template because it comes with tabs and navigation setup, and that will save us like a couple of 20 minutes. So yeah, let's choose this tabs template to have a lot of libraries already pre-installed, like vector icons and navigation specifically. So choosing that one, and now Expo is downloading the template and installing all the dependencies. Use JavaScript. I'm not going to focus on TypeScript, so we're not going to write the types. I will keep it simple with JavaScript. From time to time, I might mention where we have to do the types, but I don't understand why you're so afraid of TypeScript. If you understand that TypeScript is the same JavaScript, only specifying the types, you can follow along a tutorial that is done in TypeScript and ignore the types that they are providing, and it will work the same for you. So yeah, TypeScript is just some additional stuff on the top. Nothing else, nothing more. Sion is saying Expo is great. Yeah, I really love Expo for building these applications. It makes it much faster. Hello from Korea. Hello. All right, so our project is initialized, and we can cd inside the directory Pinterest. And from here, let's open it in Visual Studio Code or any other editor of choice if you have. In my case, that's Visual Studio Code, so I'm going to open this directory using code dot, basically this directory. The other way is just to open Visual Studio Code, then from there put open and navigate, find the folder that was generated and do it that way. So let me zoom in a bit. And before diving into the code that we have here, let's open a terminal by going here on the top terminal, new terminal. We're doing control and the tick, back tick, I think. Yeah, back tick. And here, let's do npm start. This will start our development server, and it should open a window in our browser with our, like the development tools for our Expo application. So from here, what we can do, first of all, we can run our application on Android device or emulator. So if you have an Android device connected to your computer, and if you press on this button, it will run directly on your device. Or if you have an emulator, it will open the emulator. Here you can run it also on an iOS simulator, and that's what I'm gonna do, just because iOS simulator works faster on my machine. But in your case, if you're working with a Windows machine or Linux, you can run it on Android emulators, because you have a possibility to do that there, to install the emulator using Android Studio. All right, the other way would be to simply scan this QR code using the Expo Go application on your physical device. And by doing that, you don't need any simulator. So just simply open the Expo Go application that you can find on market. And after that, scan the QR code and your application will be running and fast refreshing directly on your phone. So here we have it. Our first application is here. Let me see if you can see well the device. Probably that's good. Like that. So while we are still on this development page, I should mention where you should look whenever you have some issues. So let's say, for example, you will do any error, and that's just for demonstration purposes. For example, someone will to see the errors from your application, you have to select the device that your application is running on. And if you are running the application on multiple devices, you'll be able to see all of them in this list. So in my case, that's an iPhone 13. And here I see the error that I console logged there in my application. So this is just a simple example, but it's good to know like where to see the errors. All right, I'll clean this up here. And let's have a look at our starter application. Like, what do we have here? So from the first view, like we have two tabs, a bottom tab navigator with two tabs. Tab 1 here, and if we switch there is tab 2. We have just simple text in the middle and a header. Also, the tab 1 has this little information button that opens another model. Why is it flickering my screen? That's annoying, but okay. So yeah, this model, and that's everything that we have. So that's good because we have already a structure. To see all the things in our source code that we have from the get-go, from this template, from this Expo template, everything starts in app.tsx, and here, as we see, our component returns this JSX, which basically contains the navigation. That means that our application like the next step is our navigation, and the navigation code can be found in the folder navigation index. And here, I'm not gonna get into all the details right now, but by the end of the video, we're gonna learn like what are these all components, stack navigator, bottom tab navigator, and so on. But just for now, for you to know, like here is where all our screens are put together for our application. Then we have a folder called screens, where we keep the code for every individual screen in our application. So we have a tab 1 screen and we have a tab 2 screen. The same way a model screen that is used here, and a not found screen that is displayed whenever we are trying to redirect to an existing path. Another important folder that we will be working with is the components folder, and in this components folder we have individual components that we can reuse in our application. I'm gonna talk about them later when we get there. And the assets, yes, assets here, we can add images like for the icons, we can add fonts, and we can also add dummy data, which we should, because we will need that a bit later, but yeah, let's do it right now. So you can download the assets bundle by going to assets.notjust.dev/Pinterest. So here is the URL. It's also attached in the description. Put in your name and you'll receive the asset bundle with the dummy data. Oh my god, what's up with my voice? Let me just find this folder on my machine. Okay, here, live streams, Pinterest, asset bundle. And yeah, here in the asset bundle, we have a folder called data. So let's drag this data folder inside our assets folder. So doing just that, we have now data, fonts, and images. Inside this data, we will get to that a bit later when we will actually need that. Now, now that we have a basic understanding of the folder structure of our application, we can get started and implement like our first features. But I would recommend, before getting started, let's go into the screens, tab 1 screen, and first of all, let's rename them, because it's not tab 1 screen. In our case, that's going to be called home screen. So let's press rename, home screen, save, and also update imports from the home screen, press yes. And also let's change the name here as well inside the component, home screen. And that's it. The same way with the tab 2 screen. For the tab 2 screen, we're gonna keep it for our profile screen, right? Profile screen. So let's do that. Let's update, and also inside we can do profile screen. Now in our home screen, I'm gonna basically delete everything to have it clean. I can leave only this text, home screen. And in our profile screen, let's delete everything, leave only the title, profile screen. All right, now if I go from one tab to another, I see profile screen and here home screen. For the rest of the navigation and titles and icons, we're gonna get to that a bit later. But now let's start with something more exciting. And oh, thank you very much for the donation, Sarfak Agraval. I hope I pronounced it correctly. I really appreciate that. Sartak is saying, you're really doing a good deed in teaching all this for free on your channel. Yeah, thank you very much. I really love sharing my experience and my knowledge, and I love seeing you guys succeed. So that's what's fulfilling for me. And if you find this valuable, guys, please subscribe to the channel, because that will also help us grow the channel and reach more developers like yourself and help them in their journey. So if you can hit subscribe right now, I'm gonna be very happy, and then we can continue and building our application. So from our presentation, our next step is the pin component. So basically we're starting developing this home screen. And when you look at the home screen, we see like this nice grid with a lot of pictures, with some titles and so on. When we are developing React Native application, we should think in small building blocks, basically, as Lucas said, like Lego pieces that you can build and then put them together to create the complex application that you are trying to build. So the goal right now is to see what is the reusable part of this page that we can implement and then reuse multiple times. And as I see that this pin that contains an image and a title and this like button, it's one individual atomic component that we can reuse multiple times with different data to render different images. But everything else in terms of layout and style is the same. So for that reason, let's now focus simply on this, like on a one single pin, and let's try to render it on our screen. So let's go in our application and let's close everything, and I'm gonna open screens and home screen here. We can also let's keep it like that. So for this title, as we can see, we can use it as the title of our pin. So in that case, that's gonna be not just hoodie. Nice. And the next step is going to be the image on top that is rendering the image of a pin. So to render an image in React Native, we import the image component from actual React Native. So let's do image here, and let's render image. Let's close this component, and now let's pass here the source of the image, which will be an object with a URI. Basically, what URL should I render here? For the URL, I have already prepared it here. So from the presentation, you can copy it. Let me copy it like this, so you don't have to find some URLs. And let's render it here. Okay, we did that, but we don't see anything on the screen. Well, that's a very common bug, not even a bug, like an issue for beginners, like you render image, it's not visible. Well, the first step to check is if we provide any width and height in our styles. So let's say that the style of this image will be styles.image, and we need to define them here. I'm going to delete this separator because we don't need it, and let's add the styles for the image. Let's start with some hard-coded width and height just to see if it's working. Alright, so we already see the image on the screen, right? Okay, that's good. To make this image responsive, instead of passing with a fixed value like 200, we can pass a relative value of 100% if we want to take the whole amount of space that it contains. And here it doesn't look very good, but you know what? For this container, or let's say, yeah, this is the container, and I'm gonna put the pin inside another view. So I'm gonna take the image and the text that represents one pin, and I'm gonna put it into a view with a style for the pin. So styles dot pin. And the closing view should be after this text, so here. So let's go inside the pin. I'm gonna set the width of a pin to 100%. Okay. But now what I want to do is to this container that basically represents the whole page, I'm gonna add padding 10 to add some spacing around the corners. Yeah, that's already better. What else? Well, let's round these corners because it looks really nice. And to do that on the image, I'm gonna do border radius, I don't know, 25. Yeah, probably that looks good. We need to make the title start a little bit more from the right. So for the title, I'm gonna add margin, just in general, margin 5 to have margin around everything, or even 10. I don't know how it will look. Yeah, probably that's good. Okay, so what do we have here? So we have our pin with 100% width. Yeah, probably that's it for now, because it looks pretty similar with this one. It doesn't look exactly like this one because at the moment we are displaying this full width of our screen. What we're gonna do in the next step is when we will put them into two separate columns. But before we do that, let's see what we have to do if we want to render one more pin like this. Well, we can go here and the view that represents the pin, we can take it, copy, paste it again, and we will see another pin and another pin. So that's good, but that's not how we do it. Whenever we are copy pasting code, we should think about restructuring our code in order to make some reusable components, reusable functions that we can reuse again and again with different data. So instead of here like having to always copy paste this view with image and so on and messing up with the styles, what we will do now is we're gonna create a separate component that will include this piece of code. Basically everything from here till here. So this pin. Well, how to do that? A component is a simple file that we can declare in the components folder. Let's do new file, and it's going to be called pin.tsx. Here, let's define the function, the functional component pin, which is equal to a function, and that function here. That function will return some JSX to be rendered on the screen. What JSX? Well, this one that we just developed here. So let's copy this whole JSX thing and import everything that we have been using here. For example, come on. What's going on here? Let me check. Okay, so let's import view from React Native. Hello, why it's all red? Okay, now it's better. I don't need these comments. We need to import the image as well from React Native and the text. And also the style sheet, because we need to define the styles of one single pin here in the same file. So before that, we need to, let's define the styles. So const styles equal stylesheet.create. And here we will provide the styles from here, like image, title, and pin. because these are the styles of our pin there. Let's paste them, and we should be good to go. But before that, we need to make sure that we are exporting this export default, this pin component, because we need to import it in our home screen. We need to import it here to render it inside our view. So let's import pin from the upper folder components and then pin. And the way we render it is the same way as other components that we used. For example, the same way as we're rendering a view or an image. We simply put it in the angle brackets, we render it, and we can close it right away because it doesn't have any children. And here we have our pin. Now, if you want to render more of them, you can copy paste only the declaration, only the like the use of that pin. So now, as you can see, it's much easier to duplicate them, but yet we are not ready for rendering them in a reusable way, because yes, we can copy paste, but it still renders the same data. Basically, it still renders the same image and the same title. We need to somehow be able to adjust what image it display and what title it display, and we need to keep everything else there, like title, like the styles and the layout in general. How do we do that? Well, we do that using props in React Native. Props are the values that we can send from the upper component. In our case, from the home screen, we send to the pin some variables. We send them some data, and the data can be, for example, title. Let's say title, and image. Here the URL to the image. I'm gonna go into the assets and grab another URL, for example, here. And if I copy paste the same the second time, and here I do second title, and for the image we do not 1 but 2, actually can be 0 and 1. If I do that, we are basically sending to the pin component, we are sending the properties title with this string and image with this string. Okay, if I say nothing changes, because we are sending this data, but in our pin component we are still rendering this dummy data, basically hard-coded data from the component. So let's see how we can receive these properties. We receive the properties for a component as the first and only variable for our functional component. So if you name the variable, the parameter props, we can do console log props. And if I go now to the development tools, I see the object with image and title. These are our properties. It's an object with the key image and title, because that's what we are sending from the home screen, image and title. So what we can do now, we can grab that image, let's say image equal props.image and const title equal props.title. We can bring them from these props, but if you want to improve this a bit, we can do these two statements in one single line, and we can do that using the structuring feature from ES6, and basically we put our keys in these curly brackets and we get them from the props object. So this single line is the same as these two lines. we take the image and title from the object props and save them in these variables. Now that we have them in these variables, we can, instead of rendering this hard-coded data, we can render them like this, image. And here, instead of not just hoodie, let's put the curly brackets to be able to access the variable. And we're gonna render the title. Come on, title. Save. And as you can see, now the two pins are different, are rendering different data. And yeah, like it's manageable from the outside of a component without knowing what's going on inside. So if I change it, the title automatically changes. Whew. So that's props in React and React Native, very easily explained. The only thing that we have to, okay. The only thing that we, come on, Vadim, the only thing that I want to do now is I want to group this, instead of sending two fields, one for title and one for image, I want to send one object called pin, and this is going to be an object, as I said, with the properties title and with the property image. So now if I'm gonna remove those and leave only this pin property that is an object itself, in our pin.tsx what we will have to do is to destructure them not from the props but from the props.pin, as we are sending them in the pin object. Now everything is back to normal, and we did that in order to be able to later render them based on the dummy data, based on the like object array that we are having there. It's gonna be easier for us. All right. Okay, so let's go to our pin here and let's develop this floating button with this icon that is in the lower corner of our image. So as we can see here, this button is kind of displayed on top of the image. So whenever we have to display something on top, we one of the solution would be to work with absolute positions. But before getting into that absolute positions, let me render this icon after the image. So I'm gonna search for the icon that I want to use on Expo icons. icons.expo.fyi, and here we want the heart icon. So this heart from ndesign I think is good, or yeah, let's take it from here. Here it shows us how to import it by importing ndesign in our component, and here is how to render the icon. So let's render it here after the image right away. So yes, the icon is rendered here. Perfect. Now let's position it properly. As I said, we want to position it, or before positioning, let's add this container around the icon with the gray background, because we will have to implement like on-press events for this small icon button. We're gonna import the pressable component from React Native, and we're gonna use it as the container for our icon. Now for this pressable, we can pass their the onPress event, and the onPress event will be on like, which is going to be a function that we should declare right now, not to have an error, but we are going to implement it later. And also for this pressable, I'm going to add the styles.hard button btn. So let's define the styles here. And what do we have to define for this style? Well, we need background color, some kind of gray. Let me see if I have saved it. Yes, it's this one. D3 CF D4. It's gonna be this. And let's display it with position absolute because it will make more sense, because right now it's just a full row. So if I do position absolute, it displays in the top left corner, but I want into the bottom 10 pixels from the bottom, and I want it also 10 pixels from the right, 10 pixels like that. Perfect. I mean, not perfect yet, because it's on the bottom of its parent. If we check who is the parent of this button, it's the view of the whole pin, So that's why it renders here. What we want to do is to render it on the bottom of the image. So for that reason, we need to put this like basically in the same container with the image only. So let's wrap them around the view and put this image and pressable inside that view. And by doing that, now our icon button is displayed on the bottom, but is displayed on the bottom of this view that contains only the image. So hopefully that makes sense why we had to encapsulate it to display it here, not on the bottom of the pin. Now to make it look a bit better, we will add some padding, like padding 5, probably too much. Padding 5. I'll have to decrease the size of this icon like to 16 probably, and padding 5 in that case is gonna be too much. So, or it's gonna be okay. Yeah, probably it's okay. And let's do also border radius 20 to make it as or even let's do it more like 50. And now it's rendered as a circle there in the corner. Awesome. So yeah, for now I think we are good on the pin component. We have like displayed the image, we have displayed the title, the icon, but you know, one of the things that we have to do, well, let's say, where is it? Home screen. Why both of them are rendering the same image? Okay, like this. So we are displaying two different images, but the height of both of them are the same. When you look at the Pinterest, that's not the case. The height of the pin component here depends on the height of the image. So if you have more of a landscape image like this hoodie, then it's rendered as the height is smaller than the width of this pin. But if there is a vertical image like this one on the bottom, now it displays as the height is bigger to be able to display the whole image as it is without distorting the aspect ratio. So the trick here that we have to do is we have to maintain the aspect ratio of the image, because we want to display it full width of the container that it is put inside, but at the same time the height should be dynamic in order to maintain the aspect ratio of the image. All right. So how can we do that? Well, we can provide, for example, where is the inside the pin? Yes, inside the pin, we're going to be working here. For the styles.image, we can add here aspect ratio. So for example, if the image is square, we can add aspect ratio of 1/1. And in that case, it's like this. So where is it? Styles image. Yeah. Whenever you have aspect ratio, you should specify only one of the sizes, width or height, and the other one is going to be calculated based on the aspect ratio. So let's remove this height because we need to specify the width and aspect ratio, and the height should be automatically calculated. So I've set the aspect ratio to 1/1. As we can see, they are both kind of square. In order to be able to see them, let's go to the home screen and change from a view to simply a scroll view. Imported not from here, but imported from React Native. So let's replace view with scroll view, and that will give us possibility to and change here not style but content container style. And now we should be able to scroll through them. So back to our pin and aspect ratio. As we can see, we can work with aspect ratio here and define it how it should look. Like in this case, okay, why are not working? Flex 1, it should be, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add the scroll view on top of them. I'm not replacing the view, but on top of them, and I have to import it back from the theme components. Yes, and now I can easily scroll. So I have to scroll view and then the view of a page. Okay, so if I do 1/2, that means that the height should be 2 times more than the width. For the second one, it looks very good on this picture, but for the first one, we have a lot of things missing. So the challenge is that every image in this application will have its own aspect ratio, and we need to somehow calculate this aspect ratio ahead of time and specify it for the styles. We will have to calculate it and save it somewhere. To save some data in React Native and in React.js, we are using state. So now we're gonna see how to work with state in React Native. First of all, we need to import the use state hook from React, and this hook is gonna help us define the state variable. So let's define state equal use state. This is we're starting from here and we're gonna get to the point. So just by calling this use state, this hook, we managed to create a state, and the state, the thing that we get back from the use state hook is an array of 2 properties. One of them is the value of our state, so state at position 0. First one is value, the second one is the setter. A setter is basically a function that we can call to update our value. So we never update the value directly, so we never do value equal 1. We never do that. We use the setter and use it as a function and pass there the new property. Okay, now, yes, you can do it like this, but using some JS6 feature, we can you do all of these 3 lines in one single line. So because useState returns an array, we can destructure its value by using the square brackets and getting the value as the first item in the array is going to be saved in the value, and the second one is going to be saved in the set value. And we can do these two things right away in one row. I just want to rename from value to aspect or to the ratio, and set ratio. Okay. And also you can provide a default value. So the default value we will send here to the hook parameters. Now, where do we use this, not ratio. Where do we use this ratio? We use it to style our image. So in order to add a dynamic style, we need to provide it here inline inside the component. But we already have some styles there, so we will have to merge two different styles into the same one. To do that, we can put them in an array, like this, and provide the second object for the style here. And the second one will contain the aspect ratio that we will take it from our state variable. Now I don't need to set it here in the styles because we dynamically set it inline. If I save, we see that both of them have the aspect ratio of 1. If I do 1/2, it updates automatically because our component is listening for updates for our state variables, and whenever we have some updates, it re-renders everything. Okay, but the challenge here is how do we calculate the ratio? How do we get it? Well, for that we're going to use the image property from Expo. Not from Expo, from React Native. We're going to use this image component, and this image component has a static method that we can call, which is called getSize. By calling image getSize, we can pass there a URI. So our URI is our image, right? That is coming from the props. And the second parameter should be a function for the success. Basically, a function that will receive the width and a second parameter height of the image. Now let's define what this function should do. Well, whenever we know the width and the height of the image, we can calculate the ratio. So set ratio of width divided by height. And now we see that this image displays everything, this one as well, but they are two different images and they have their own image size. So that's how we calculate it. So if I change to, I don't know, to 2 and 3 here, you will see that our components take the height depending on the height of the image, maintaining its aspect ratio. Perfect. We can leave this one here, but the problem is that this function is going to be called every time we re-render the component. So we don't want that. We want to calculate the ratio only once, basically only when we receive the image. We want to calculate it, not every time it re-renders. To do that, to execute some code depending on the life cycle of our component, we use the useEffect hook, and we're going to use it in the following way. So useEffect is going to be a function here, and this function is going to be executed, but when it is executed depends on the dependency array that you are sending here. If you're not sending anything, let's take this one image here because this is what we're trying to do. So if we are not passing any dependency, this useEffect will be called on every re-render, basically having the same issue that we have here. If you pass only an empty dependency array, this function is going to be called only once the first time the component mounts. When we want to call this function, well, when our image changes. So by providing the image property here, we make sure that this use effect will re-execute whenever the image changes. And I can also add a if statement here. If image exists, basically if image is not null, then do this thing. And if I refresh and delete this one from here, leave it only in the use effect, yes, it's perfect. It looks good, and it's optimized by getting the size only once. Awesome. Okay, so we learned about already a lot of things. We learned about props, we learned about state, how to calculate dynamically the size of an image. We learned about other important hooks like use effect, how to render everything, how to style. That's good progress. And if we look into the pin component, so we have an image, we have title, icon, button. We extracted it to a separate component, we implemented the props, and we implemented the state. Amazing. How do you guys feel so far? Are you managing? Do you have any questions? Are you building along? We should move to the next step. And the next step is the exciting part for this tutorial. In this part, we're going to learn how to render a Masonry layout. And this Masonry layout is quite an interesting layout to render because it's not supported by default with flat list in React Native. And we will have to do it ourselves. So, but before that, what does it mean? Like, what's this Masonry layout? Well, it's a layout that looks similar to a grid, but in a grid view, we have very strict rules of columns and rows. So both of our axes, for vertical axis and horizontal axis, they basically form like a line, and in that case, like we have white spaces whenever the heights are different for different cells. In a Masonry layout, we basically have one fixed axis, which in this case is our vertical axis, and the horizontal axis is not fixed. Basically, all the items on the horizontal line, they float. Basically, they are displayed as high as possible without wasting any space. So whenever one pin finishes here, the second one is rendered without having to render some white space and then another pin. So yeah, like basically in 2 words, like Masonry layout is the Pinterest layout that we see with these cells. Before that, let's go here in our home screen component. Let me check if I have. Let me commit everything so you could also see like step by step everything that we're building in the source code that you can get in the description below. To git commit pins, yes, pin component. Okay, so now you might think that, okay, in order to render this list of pins, we can use a flat list. You don't have to do that. You can just watch me work with a flat list, but I'm going to show you what issues I had with a flat list and what issues the flat list has. So, for example, a flat list, for a flat list, you usually need an array of data. And for our array of data, we are going to import our assets data pins. So assets data pins is an array that contains multiple objects for our different pins. Every pin has simply one ID, an image, and a title. So simple enough, let's import it in our home screen. Import pins from assets data pins. Let's send these pins to the data of a flat list, and in the render item, let's assign the function. Let's get the item and let's render the pin. And the pin expects a property called pin, and that data for the pin is going to be one individual item that is coming from our data array. So it contains ID, image, and title. Now I can easily remove these two, and what we have is a flat list with all our pins from the dummy data. All the images are displayed with dynamic height, which is really nice. Well, we might say that, okay, now we need it to be rendered in 2 columns, so we can say number of columns equal 2. Number of columns on the fly is not supported, so I'm gonna have to refresh. Okay, it doesn't look very good because I'm gonna have to change in the pin. Again, you don't have to do this one. Instead of width 100, I'm gonna have to do flex 1 because we are trying to render 2 in the same row. Or yeah, let's even do, I don't know, 50 for now, just for you to show you. Okay, something is showing up, but it's the issue that I was talking about. Like every time, like all the new columns, they all start from the same basically horizontal line, and we have these white spaces. This is a typical grid view, but this is not something that we need. But yeah, the problem is that the flat list, even in the documentation of React Native, they're saying that they do not support Masonry views, Masonry layouts. So we cannot use a flat list in this situation. What we will have to do is to code, basically develop our own way of rendering our pins. Okay, how we are gonna do that? The way to think about it is these are 2 separate individual columns. They are not a grid with columns and row. They are 2 columns, one on the left, one on the right. Then when you split them in this way, one individual column is simply rendering all the items one after another. And they do not depend on anything else because they are in their own bucket, in their own context. So what we're gonna do, let me remove this flat list. And here in our container, let's define our 2 columns. So one view is going to be style, I don't know, background. Let me take a very nice color picker. That's not very nice, but it's better. And the other one, let's copy it and add background, a different one. Come on. No. So we have these two views. Let's also add the style flex1 to one of them and flex1 to the second one, because we want them to take one half of the screen and another one the other half of the screen. Now the last step is for our container to, if I add some simply height, we do not see them yet because our container should display everything. Basically, let me remove everything except the padding, because those were from the previous steps. But what we need to do is to render, to specify the flex direction row, because we want to render these two columns basically in the same row, not one after another, but in the same row from left to right. Let me simply add a pin here, and this is going to be pin at pin. For the pin data, let's do pins at position 0. Come on, pins at position 0, and the same thing in the second column, pins at position 1. Okay, now it's good, but let's go in our pin and move back from 50% to 100%. Okay, another thing that we will have to do is to to basically add some margins for our between the items. I'm gonna do that by adding some padding, for example 4 here, and we have them there. So as you can see, we have split our screen into two individual columns, right? Two individual columns. The first column, and the second one here. Now if I'm gonna render multiple pins in the first column and multiple pins in the second one, 1 0 1 2 3 4 5, we see that now they behave independent of each other, and we don't have those white spaces between them. So basically, yes, they are simply two independent columns rendering from top to bottom, firstly in the first column 1 2 3, then in the second one 1 2 and 3. But the order of how we are rendering them is important, because the code is executed from top to bottom. So first it will render the pin at position 0, which is this hoodie. Then it will render pins at position 1, which is this laptop. Basically, that's how we want to render. But we expect the items to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To go left, right, left, right, left, right. The way we read stuff. So if I have 3 items, I want this one to be the first one, second one, and third one. How can we get to this? How can we get to this? Well, it depends on the way we count. We access the pins in this array, because the first one is this notjust.dev hoodie, so it's the 0th. The next one I expect it to the right, so it shouldn't be here. It should be as the first item in the second column. So here should be the first item. The second item with index 1. Sorry if I'm confusing you right now. Then the item with the index 2 should be here, then 3, then 4, and then 5. So we go first column, second column, first column, second column, and so on. We do that, yeah, like because we want them to be rendered in this order as we see them in the code, but to be logically sorted, like based on the rows. I hope that makes sense. Like I'm a bit confused to explain it, like how we can do that, how to explain this concept of, yeah, like how we count everything. But what I wanted to say here is that we see a pattern. In the first column, we display all the even. Are these even numbers or odd? Yes, all the even numbers. And in the second column, we display all the odd indexes. This is important, and it will help us in the next step, because we don't want to copy paste this pin for all the items that we have. We want dynamically to loop through all the items and render a pin for every data that we have in our array. To do that, we're gonna have to map through our pins data. And we map because we want to transform every pin in that array from a data array to a JSX component. So every pin there will be transformed into a pin component with this data sent as the properties, like this. And now I can comment this out because I still want to show you this 0, 1, 2, 3. And let's do the same in the second column. We will map through all the pins, and for every pin we render a component of pin. That's fine, but it renders duplicates because we render all the pins in the first column and we render all the pins in the second column. But in the previous argument, we agreed that in the first column we should render only even indexes, not all items, but 0, 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and so on. And in the second column, only odd indexes, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. So how can we do that? We can either add a if statement here in the map, but I like to first filter our array. And how we're gonna filter? Well, this is the item and this is the index. We're gonna filter based on the index. So if index divide the remainder, or when dividing the index with 2, if it's equal to 0, because the remainder of dividing, for example, 4 by 2 is 0, then we want to keep it in our pins array and render it. So now, as you can see, we render, in the first column, we render every odd item, but in the right one, we render all of them. So you can see that the first column skipped this one, which is at position 1, and it also skipped this one. So we should do the same for the second column, but for the second column, instead of checking if it's equal to 0, we should check if it's equal to 1. So now we finally are rendering everything correctly. So I can remove these comments. I can remove this comment. And I can also remove the background colors for our columns, because we understood the point and now we need to have a clean design. So instead of specifying the styles right away here for the columns, we can say style.column. I like to put them in, to use styles.something, because it helps me understand what is this view when I look at the code. Oh, it's a column because I see it here. So for the column, come on, we have flex 1, right? Yes. And now all of them are displayed correctly. And yeah, like if we look at the titles, for example, notjust.dev hoodie, you expect it to be the first one. Then the second one is programmer working on laptop. You expect it to be the next one to the right, correct? And then computer setup, this one. So you see how it renders in the correct order. This one doesn't have a title, but that's good. Amazing. So that's everything that we need to do to render this Masonry flat list layout. But yeah, like we're not done yet. We should see a warning saying that each child in a list should have a unique key property. Why is that happening? This error is usually coming from the places where you are rendering a list of components. In our case, we are rendering a list of pins because we map through an array. Whenever you do that, React Native thinks that, okay, this is an array, and we are trying to render a component for every array element. But that array can have millions of items. And in that case, like it's going to be very hard for React Native and the engine to keep track properly of all the items and to know when to re-render what. So to solve this issue, for every item in that list, we have to provide a key property. And the key property, I'm going to take it from our pin, and it's going to be pin.id. Now, if I do the same for this one, I can refresh and I don't see the warning anymore because we are providing a proper key here. As well with filtering, whenever, like here we have item, but we are not using it because we only need the index in this filter function. Whenever you don't need the variable, you can replace it with an underscore. This is just for for convention saying that, okay, I don't need this variable, just put it there. I just need the second one. Okay. Whew, that's interesting. Universe Code, hello, how are you doing? Anmoon Play, thank you very much for your donation. Anmoon is saying hats for the process. Awesome, thank you very much, and thank you for being here, supporting the channel. Simeon Andrei, clean UI. Yes, that's actually what I really love about Pinterest, because it's very super clean, minimalistic design. And I really love it. I don't know, even as a user and also as a developer, because it's less things to manage, but like even as a user, like it's something to it. If I know any Markdown editor for React Native or any code editor, I cannot recommend it from the top of my head. But if you write me a message, I can have a look at some libraries that I've tried or I can find. The only thing that, let me check if here for the title. I think 16 fonts, 20 font size is too much, so I'm gonna switch to a 16. But I'm gonna increase the line height in order to make the text more readable. So I'm gonna increase it, I don't know, to 22. Yes, as you can see, the line height, if you increase it a bit, it's much more readable. 22 probably is good. And the color is not actually black. It should be a dark gray. So it should be 181818. Yes, now it looks a bit better. This is pure black. Maybe on the video you don't see it, but like this slight difference is very important for me. And the margin, yeah, like if we decrease the the font size, it makes sense to decrease the margin as well. And font weight, maybe 600. Yeah, maybe this one looks better. Yeah, let's go with 600 here. Juan, how much can you recommend for React Native development? Oh, how much RAM you can recommend? I know, I think anything above 8 it will fly. Probably on 4, I don't know. But yeah, like if it's above 8, it's gonna work. Can you truncate the case to make it even clearer? That's a very good suggestion. So in case the title is too long, we can limit it to only 2 lines. And that is done very easily by specifying the number of lines to 2. And in this case, if the title is longer than 2 lines, then it will add these 3 dots at the end. So now it's even better. Okay, all right. Border radius for this image, I think is too much. Let's see. Yeah, now it's better. Okay, perfect. So we have it. We have our Masonry list layout. Let's see what are our comments. Hello, just.dev. Not just.dev. Not just.dev. Tutorial for Redux toolkit for authentication. Okay, thanks for the recommendation. Can you try to switch the phone screen to landscape? Oh, that's interesting. Let's see. If I do it like this, will it turn? Why it doesn't turn? From the device IO. Wait a second. Where? Rotate left. I think, yeah, from our code, we limited only to, if I go to the app.json, I see that the orientation is only portrait. Let's see. Default. So in this case, it looks like this. And in this case, the default. Oh, wait a second. I need to do it from here. Device, rotate right. Okay, and device, rotate left. Okay, when the screen is like this, we can go ahead and actually implement things to split it into 3 columns, not 1 column. Shall we do that? Maybe we're gonna do that at the end to have this list dynamic on the screen size and to check if the screen size is, if the width is enough for 3 columns, then go for 3 columns. So I'm gonna take a note, and if at the end we have some time, I'm gonna try to implement this dynamic thing. It shouldn't be that hard. So let's commit everything and move forward. Git commit home screen Masonry layout. Is it going to be a flexible style between? Yeah, like you saw what's happening if I switch to landscape. Basically, it renders correctly, but I think it would look better if it renders in 3 columns. So, with that being said, let's have a look at our plan for today. What do we have here? Masonry list layout, 2 columns, scrollable list. Perfect, we have it. Let's move on. The next one is the pin page. It's a page that we're gonna use to render 1 single pin. So to do that, let's go ahead in our code, and in our screens directory, let's create a new file called pin screen. screen.tsx, and let's define the pin screen as a functional component, which will return simply I don't know, a text for now, pin screen. This text should be imported from React Native. So let's import, probably we'll need a view, a text, and a style sheet here. So let's import them right away, style sheet from React Native. And lastly, let's export default pin screen. Pin screen. Awesome. Now, what do we do with this pin screen? Where do we put it? Well, you know what? Let me not get into the navigation now because I'm going to confuse you. We're going to get there a bit later. Now, let's simply go ahead and instead of navigation, open our app.tsx. And instead of navigation, let's render the pin screen right away here. So I'm going to do it like that, and I already see the pin screen. If you don't see it, add some margin top 100 and you'll see here pin screen. So that's the easiest one. Let's first develop the user interface for this screen, and after that we're gonna put it together with navigation, so whenever we click on one pin on the home screen, we're gonna be redirected here automatically. All right, so let's have a look at what we will need here. Well, we will need an image, we will need the title, and a back button here on the top. Let's do just that. So I'm gonna start with the top component view. Inside the view, that is gonna be, let's do styles dot root. We are gonna have inside it an image with the source URI something and style equals styles dot image, and let's close this component. And lastly, we're gonna have the text. The text will have styles dot title. Let's import the image from React Native, and let's now define the styles. So const styles equal stylesheet dot create, and we have their root, we have their image, and we have their title. Okay, before that, let's see where do we get this pin from. We're gonna get it from the dummy data as well. So let's import pins from assets data pins, and our pin, let's say here const pin is gonna be equal to the first one, basically pin set position 0. So the URI is going to be pin dot image, and in the title let's put pin dot text in the curly brackets here, not text but title. Okay, something is there, but yeah, let's go ahead and add with 100%. And for the height of this image, basically we need to do the same strategy that we did there. So I'm gonna just simply hard code here. That's okay, but we need to dynamically calculate it. So in the components pin, we can take this use effect inside the pin screen that will calculate if pin.image, then pin.image, and here pin. Now we need to bring also the ratio state to the pin screen and import use state from there. And instead of specifying the height on the image itself, we're gonna add it as another style object here that will have the dynamic aspect ratio. Okay, now it's rendering with the maintained aspect ratio. Another thing that we will need here, another thing that we see on the design here is that on the top the image has round corners and it doesn't go underneath the status bar. So there where we see the clock, and other icons on the top, the image shouldn't be there. So to do that, let's put everything in a safe area view component, and by putting our page in a safe area view, we make sure that it doesn't go under the notch. Safe area view is there, we don't see it under the notch. It's imported from this React Native safe area context. Now what I want to do is, as you can see here, the background color there is black and it looks quite good. So let's do style background color black. That's okay, but for our root, let's say that the root should be full height of a screen, so 110%. But it should always also reset this background color back to white. So where we have a root here in the inside the safe area view, we have a background color white for the page. But outside of a safe area view, we have background black, and that's displayed here on the top and on the bottom. Another problem is that we lost the ability to see the clock, for example. But that's because it's rendered with also black text. So we can use the status bar imported from where is it? From Expo status bar, and we can give there a style of light, and that will render the status bar with the light color. Now we can see the things there back. Okay, so we did that because we wanted to make round corners for this image, right? So let's specify it. As you saw, it should be only on the top. So we need border radius, border top and radius of 30, and border top right radius 30. No, top left here, right? Top left. Okay, the corners are rounded, and I can even probably do more, 50. The corners are rounded, but I see still white thing there, like white corners. So we can simply take this border and put it on the root itself. So basically the whole page container will have these round borders on the top, and we will see the color behind them, which is the black. And in that case, maybe we don't need this one, but if I add overflow hidden, no, it doesn't work. So we still need that one, both for the image and for the container. Perfect. What's next? The next is our title. So let's style our title, right? Let's start with some spacing because we need social distancing. Margin 10. Let's increase the font size to something at least 24. Let's increase also the font weight to 600 to make it kind of semi-bold. This is different than bold. Yes, bold is 700. And let's also align them in the center. So text align center. Okay, that looks good. If I'm gonna change the pins to pin 1, okay, that's good. But I want to make the text more readable, so I'm gonna increase the line height to something more. Yeah, probably like that. So that's about this page, right? Interesting. Okay. The last thing that we need to do here is going to be our back button. So for that, let's import an icon. So let's import icons from Expo vector icons, and let's render it inside our root view. So inside this page, and I'm going to render it at the end. Icons, the name is going to be chevron back like this. For the size, it's going to be 35, and the color, I think it's going to be white. If I do red, it's here. Okay, perfect. Now I need to put this icon on the top left corner. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it outside of our page completely. And I'm gonna put it into a pressable component because we need to be able to press on it. We need the onPress event. The onPress event is going to be go back function that we will implement here. Const go back. It's a function that we will implement in a moment. Now for this pressable, let's add a style, styles.backBTN. For the backBTN, where is it? I don't see it. We need position absolute. Okay, it's there. We see it, but it's rendered too much on top. So we need to add top, I don't know, 50, maybe even more, and also left 20, or maybe left 10 and top 70. Okay, something like that. But the problem is I'm gonna switch to white here. White. The problem is that on this screen size it looks okay because it has the notch, but on other screen sizes on other devices it doesn't have a notch, it's not gonna be rendered correctly because it's gonna be too low. So we need to take into consideration how far from the top should we render this button. how far from the top depends on the size of our notch, because if a notch is big, we need to render it like many pixels from the top. If it's smaller, we need less pixels there. So to get the size of the of our notch, we can get the insets using use safe area inset. Now these insets will contain an object with the size of the top notch and the size of the bottom notch. So I can go into this pressable. I can add one more style by adding them to an array, and then the style and the top will depend on the insets dot top plus something more, plus 20 or something like that. So let's delete the top here, 70. And now it looks good. If I do just simply insets dot top, it's going to be simply at the beginning of our safe area view. But I want to add 20 more or 10 more. No, 20 is good. To render it a little bit lower. Now with this dynamic top value based on the size of the notch, we will correctly display it both on phones with a notch and without. Okay, so we have this back button, but now, and we have finished everything on this page, right? We have a proper image here, we have a title, back button. Now it's the time to put them together with the navigation, so that every time we press on a pin on the homepage, we are redirected here. So let's go to app.tsx and delete the pin screen from here and go back to our navigation rendering, and I can also delete the import. So we have navigation, let's refresh. We have the home screen rendered here. Okay, so let's open our navigation index and see what is our navigation made of. Well, it starts with a navigation container, and everything related to navigation should be inside one navigation container. Then inside the navigation container, we render one navigator, the root navigator that is defined here. Our root navigator is a stack navigator, and a stack navigator is simply a navigator that gives you the possibility to, whenever you move forward, you put screens basically on top of each other, similar to a stack, and when you go back, you remove the most recent screen that you opened, and by doing that, you get back to the previous screen. So it works like a stack. And in this stack navigator, we have our bottom tab navigator and some other like not found screen. But this is where we want to render one more screen for our pin. So let's copy the first row here, stack screen, and add it before the not found route. For the name, I'm gonna call this one pin. For the component, I'm gonna render the pin screen. For the options, header shown false. That's okay. Now I saved, and yeah, here is my stack screen besides the root, inside the root navigator. Okay. Now, whenever we press on one of these pins, we need to navigate to the pin screen. So in our components, we need to add the onPress event for our pin. To handle the onPress events on the pin itself, we will transform this view into a pressable to be able to detect press event on the whole pin component. On press, go to pin page. let's implement this function here, const. I like to keep my use effects on the top and the custom functions below. So now in this go to pin page, before implementing the logic there, we can simply console warn clicked and see if we see the console log here whenever we click. Yes, we see it. Sorry. So instead of console logging, we should actually go to the pin page. To do that, we need navigation. We need access to the navigation object. To get access to the navigation object, we use a hook called use navigation that we import from React Navigation Native. Now using this use navigation hook, we can take the navigation object, and using this navigation object inside our go to pin page, we can call navigation.navigate to the pin page. Now if I'm gonna press on this one, I navigate to the pin page. I cannot go back, but actually let's implement being able to go back. So on the pin screen here, we have go back. To go back, we need to do the same things. We need access to the navigation, which we will get from use navigation hook, like this, const navigation use equal use navigation. And in the go back, we're gonna call navigation.go back. Not got back, but go back. And now if I press on this one, I am back. If I click on others, we are redirected here. Perfect, that's amazing. But all the time I press on a different pin, I still see the same image here. That is because in the pin screen, we are hard coding what pin we're trying to render. Basically, we are taking, where is it? Not in the pin screen. We're basically taking the pin at position 1. Xdreamland is saying you can directly get the navigation from the props.navigation. Yes, if the component is rendered by the navigation, which means if a component is a screen, in the pin screen here, instead of taking it from here, I could take it from the props, like this navigation. And I don't need to take it using the hook. But, and it will work, like if I go back, it works. But I prefer using the hook, always using the hook, because not always we need the navigation inside the screen. Sometimes we need it in the components way below. For example, in the pin here, in the props, I'm not gonna have a navigation because this is not a screen, this is a component. And for that reason, I tend to always get the navigation using the hook because it's much more reliable. I don't need to have two ways of doing the same thing in my mind. It's only one. And whenever one screen later on becomes a component, or you extract the functionality from a screen to a component, you're not going to have issues because this use navigation hook works both in screens and components. Hopefully that makes sense. Pin screen. So as I was saying, instead of taking the pin at position 1, we need to somehow send the data about what pin was clicked whenever we click on one of these pins. To send data through navigation, we pass another object as the second parameter, and here we provide any data that we need. I'm gonna send only the ID of our pin, so the ID we should destructure it from pin, and I'm gonna send it like this. Navigation, navigate to pin. Don't worry about the red warning, everything is okay. we are just not implementing the types at the moment. So by doing this, we are sending the ID property of a pin that was clicked to our pin screen, here. Now the question is, how do we get the ID here to know what data to render? We get it using another hook called useRoute, and useNavigation is helping us navigate to another route, but useRoute will help us get information about the current route that we are on. So route equal useRoute, and we can do console log route. By console logging route and looking in the development tools here, if I press on this one, I see that the route has a key of pin, name, pin, and has an object called parameters, params, with the ID that I'm interested in. So the route has const pin ID is equal route dot params, because you saw that it has the params with the ID that we are sending here whenever we click on one. All right, that's good. Now, the pin that we are trying to render is one of the pins, and we need to find it. We need to find the pin that has the ID equal to the pin ID that we received in the route. So we have here pin, we can delete it from the top of our component. And here for the params, we can put a question mark because it can be undefined. So let's try it now. Here pin can be undefined, so I'm gonna do question mark here as well. And let's do if pin was not found, then render a text pin not found. We need to return it, by the way, because in some cases you might receive some IDs that are not there, so you need to handle that situation. So now if I'm gonna press on this one, okay, I see right away that it is working properly and we are able to navigate from one to another. Awesome, that really looks nice. Oh, all right. So that's the navigation. That's our screens put together with the navigation. We can navigate from one to another. We can see all of them, and it looks really clean. Okay, so let's. If I'm not mistaken, that's everything about this pin page. Yes, let's do git add, git commit -m pin screen. All right, perfect. Let's close everything and move on with the next step. The next step is our profile screen. All right. So the profile screen is going to be another screen in our bottom tab navigator, but basically we already have a code for it. Profile screen here. So if I go here, I see profile screen. So you can do favorite state with any state management. I can do that. I can do the favoriting pins using state management library, but I want to implement them properly on the backend level so that the data will not only live on your device, but it will be saved in a remote database in the cloud. And if you open your profile from another device, you will see the pins that you loved. So I don't want to do it on the front-end level. I want to do it on the back-end level with proper database and API for favoriting the pins that you like. Oh, okay, so what do we have here? Let's see, we have a profile picture, we have a name, followers, and after that the pins that the user uploaded or the pins that the user liked. So we have a text profile screen that can be our name, so can be like this. We will have one image. And for the image, let me grab it. Okay, here is the avatar that I want to use, URI. And let's give some style to the image, styles.image. And we need to import the image component from React Native. We don't have a separator, so go away from here. We have the image, which we can style with a fixed width of 200 and aspect ratio of 1 because we want it to be kind of round. And some border radius 200 to make it round. Thing is, yeah, like my picture is already round and you didn't see, but yeah, like right now it will make all the pictures round like this. Okay, that's good. So for the container, okay, maybe. What else do we need there? We need some spacing around the title, so we can add margin 20. That's good. John, no, I'm not Russian. However, I know Russian. So basically, I'm from Moldova. In Moldova, people do know Russian. Hi, great video. Thank you, Vicente. One question, I'm doing a notification for my app with AWS and trying to show the Android. Many-to-many relationship. It shouldn't be many-to-many, it should be one-to-many because the notification has only one user, but the user can have multiple notifications. So I don't see a reason for many-to-many here. Maybe I'm missing something. I heard this was your last stream. Why? Who told you that? Oh, I missed the opportunity to do some funny 1st of April jokes, yeah? Alright, so from our design, the next step would be to render the followers. And that's going to be another text below this one with subtitle style. And let's do subtitle here. Subtitle. I'm gonna add a color, 181818, font weight of 600, not completely bold, and probably that's it at the moment. And yeah, let's say, I don't know, 123 followers and like these followings. Hello, will you do a tutorial about social authentication with AWS Amplify and Cognito? Actually, we have it already on the channel. So check out the authentication screens, and we did do everything from the beginning, designing everything in React Native, all the authentication screens, up to integrating it with Cognito and implementing a lot of features there. Okay, so what we have to render below this information? Well, we have to render basically the Masonry list of pins, right? So from our home screen, we have here this list. Basically, we have to render it once there. I'm very tempted to copy paste it there as well, but I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I'm gonna create a separate component for our Masonry list. So let's create this Masonry list.tsx. I'm gonna generate the component using the React Native snippets extensions from VS Code. You can check the VS Code extensions that I'm using. I have a video on the channel for that as well, if you want to generate this component easily. So in the Masonry list, I'm gonna move everything. Actually, I'm gonna copy everything. No, let's just move a scroll view here. So basically everything. Let's import the scroll view here. What else? The pin. I'm gonna import everything from here as well. But what else we don't need? We don't need this one. And from the home screen as well, the styles, I'm gonna take them here in the Masonry list. Basically, I moved everything and I just rename it to Masonry list. And now I can use this, this component to render it in our home screen. So in the home screen, let's do Masonry list. And let's send the pins as a property, as a prop, through props, like pins equal pins, because we will have to display different pins in different places. On the home screen, it's one set of pins, on the other is another set of pins. The only thing that is common is the layout that it is used. So let's import this Masonry list. And these pins inside Masonry list will be received in the properties, and we don't have to import them here from the dummy data. Okay. If you want to get rid of all of these issues, we can define the interface for this. Not sure if I want to do it, but yeah, let's do Masonry list is going to have a property called pin, which is going to be an type of object having ID of type string. It will have image of type string, and it will have title of type string. Now everything, this object will be an array because we have an array of pins, and it should be pins, not pin. Masonry. So now having this interface, we can annotate our properties object, and by doing that, we don't have that red warnings here because TypeScript understands that these pins is an array of objects. All right, so where are we at? We have this Masonry list. We are displaying it properly in the home screen. For the home screen, I don't need the navigation, so we can remove everything there. it's gonna be as simple as this. We don't even need the styles here. And I'm gonna clean up the imports that I'm not using. Very simple, very clean. Now the same list, Masonry list, we can provide in the profile screen underneath our user. So I can do Masonry list. Pins will be the pins, the same pins from the asset, from the dummy data that we imported. I don't see them properly. Let's think why. Because container has, okay, Masonry list. Let's see what this scroll view has. This scroll view should we define the width of a content to be 100%? Why don't see it? If I go to the profile page, home screen, profile screen, here we have our container. We have a container there. Well, I think instead of flex 1 here, we need a width of 100 pixels for our page container for the tab 2 screen. Why is it tab 2 screen called? It should be called profile screen. Okay, now it works. I deleted the other two styles from here. So what I need only justify content center to align them in the middle of the screen, but not justify content. Align items center. And it doesn't work with align items center. That's fine. I can do it the following way. Whoa. The problem is that now, like, this list scrolls only here. It doesn't scroll together with our images and the name. So let's move this view to scroll view, and then we will be able to scroll all of them together like this. And here I'm gonna put them inside another view called header. Style equal styles.header, and this header I'm gonna add line items center. Perfect. Now it works perfectly. And from the profile screen as well, I can go to the pin page, and I can go back to the profile screen of a user. Will we have access to the project code after it is completed? Yes, I'm gonna leave the URL in the description of the video. Okay, so you know what? For the image, where do we have image? I'm gonna add some margin vertical 10. And for the title, instead of margin 20, I'm gonna do 10. And for the subtitle as well, margin 10. I just wanted more space on the top of the image, having it in between as well. All right, so I think we are done with the profile screen. We have an image, name, followers, pins, and the last thing is the header icons. So for the header icons, inside this header, before the image, let's render the view for our styles.icons. So for the icons, I have them already prepared. I have searched for them, and it's a fever icon with the name share, and the typo icon from vector icons. So name share, size 24, color black, styles.icon, and we should see them here. So let's implement the styles for the icons container and for the icon itself. For the icons, I want a flex direction row to display them side by side. And for the let's see, background color, I want to see how wide is this container. So it's as wide as the content inside, which means that we can use align self flex end to align it on the right. Okay, now we can remove the background color and we can add some padding to this container, tend to have some spacing there. This same padding we can add to the icon to add space between the icons themselves, and I can do it only horizontally because it's enough vertical padding. And I think that's good. That's perfect. Maybe we don't need the header, as we see here on our designs. We don't have a header. Not sure. I could leave a header but change the name. So in the navigation, in the index, where we have our tab 1, tab 2, for the title I can say profile, and it says profile here. Tab bar icon, code. Oh, well, we're still here. Okay. Let's commit everything because we finished with our profile screen. So git add git commit -m profile screen. And let's fix the icons that we are rendering here for the profile and for the other icons. I also prepared the icons for ourselves, and in our case, for the tab 2, we have there a font awesome icon called font awesome. The name is user, the size is 30, and the color is the one that we're receiving here. So it's this bluish color because it's for the tint. We'll see in a moment. The first icon is going to be also from the font awesome, and if I scroll down, if I scroll up to tab 1, we see here the property tab bar icon. So for the tab bar icon, I'm gonna add here font awesome, home, size 30, color to render this home icon. For the header right here, do we need anything here? I don't think so. So for that reason, I can remove the whole header right from here, not to be confusing to you. For the title, let's say your, I don't know, home. For the labels, as you can see here on the design, on Pinterest, they do not show labels. We can hide them by specifying in the screen options a property called label shown, tab bar show label. property, and if we say false, then the labels will be hidden. And we can go from profile to home. Nice. And the last icon in the middle that we need there is going to be the plus icon. We don't have it yet, so let's simply copy one of these stack screens, add it in the middle, and for the icon, it's a font awesome plus icon. And the only thing is that we need to provide a valid name for it, so the name will be create pin, and yes, it works. 1 second, let me open it again. Index. So yeah, let's now rename our home screen to home, and here from tab 2 to profile. We see a lot of problems here. Also the navigation, we don't need navigation here, so I'm gonna remove everything from this line except the 2 brackets, and from the last one I'm gonna remove the other bracket. And the same here, like I'm gonna remove everything from this line except the 2 brackets and the round bracket from here. Now it looks a bit better. So for the name, we see that it complains, and if we want to fix that, we simply have to open the types.tsx file from the root of our folder, and where we see tab 1 and tab 2, we rename them tab 1 to home, tab 2 to create pin, and we add one more for profile and also specify undefined. By doing that, we now have proper validation for the names of our stack screens here. And for initial route, let's put it to the home. So we have fixed our navigation here. The same way you can fix this error with pin is not assignable to type root stack navigator param list. If we go to the types, root stack param list, besides the root, we also have a pin screen, and instead of undefined, which means that this screen does not expect any route parameters, we say that this screen expects the ID parameter, which should be a string. So every time we navigate there, we need to pass an ID to the parameters. And now it works as well. At the bottom of this file, the tab bar icon component, we can remove it because we don't need it anymore. So that means that we have clean up git add, git commit -m, clean up navigation. Amazing. So with profile screen, we are done, right? Image name, followers, pins, and header. We go there, we see them as expected. All right, so our next screen is going to be create a pin screen. And this is going to be the screen here in the middle, under the plus sign. And whenever we go there, we will be able to select an image from our gallery, add some description about the image, and then submit everything to the backend. So give me 1 second and I'm going to be back and we start implementing this feature. All right, so I'm back. And yeah, we can implement our last screen, which is going to be the create a pin screen. We don't have a component for it, so let's generate the component in the screens folder called create pin screen.tsx. Here, let's generate a functional component for create pin. Perfect. And let's go in the navigation. In our bottom tab navigator, where we have our create pin screen with the plus icon, instead of rendering the tab 1 screen, we want to render the create pin screen. So now if I go to the plus sign, I see create pin screen. So I can close everything else and focus on the create pin screen for now. Close everything and open create pin screen. So how we're gonna implement picking an image from a library? For that, we're gonna use a library called Expo image picker. This image picker will allow us to launch the image gallery and select an image from there, and then get the URI for that image. So based on the documentation, what we have to do, is to run Expo install Expo image picker. So let's do just that. Expo install Expo image picker. And after that, let's see the example that they are providing. So usage here. Let's copy the, basically let's copy the whole component here and see how they're doing it. So I'm gonna replace everything in our case with a component from their example, and let's call it create pin screen. Okay, so as we can see, without getting into the code, we see a button here, pick an image from camera roll, and if I press on it, I can choose it, and I then see the image on the screen here. So that's exactly what we need. But how it's happening? Well, we have this button here with the text pick an image from camera roll, or upload your pin, can be for our case, and whenever we press on this button, we call the pick image function. This pick image function simply calls the image picker and tells to launch the image library for us. Then we provide a couple of options here, and here we specify the media types, allow editing, aspect ratio, quality, and so on. So for the media types, we don't want all media types. We want only images, right? For allow editing, yeah, let's keep allow editing. For aspect ratio, we don't want to limit the aspect ratio. So any image that you want there will be okay. Quality here specifies, yeah, like if it's 1, it means keep the full quality of the image. If it's 0.5, it means that it will degrade a bit the image quality. It will compress it to have to be lighter. So depending on your use case, you can specify here different values. Then we are console logging the result, and if we go in the logs, we see that object, the result has a property cancelled, false if we upload, and if I press cancel, it will be cancelled true. And in case we have selected an image, it will have a height, the type, the URI, and the width of the image. So we take this URI. If the result.cancelled is false, then we save this URI of the image that we just selected in the state. Now with this image from the state, we simply conditionally render the image component if there is any image in that state. Okay, so here for the image, the width we can go with 100% like this, and for the height, I don't know, 400 will be enough. You could go ahead and again calculate the image to be full-sized with our trick that we did previously. But in my case, like when uploading, I'm just gonna display it with this height, or even like aspect ratio of 1. Yeah, that's better. Alright, so what do we need else beside the image? Well, besides the image, we also need a text input to get the title of our new post. So after the image, we want to add a text input, and to do that, we will need to wrap them inside a common view. So I'm gonna wrap them inside an empty view, which is also called a fragment, because I don't need to assign any styles. I just only want to make this expression work as a common parent for our image and the text input. For the text input, let's add a placeholder called title. And we already see it there, like title, as you can see. Perfect. Now, let's add some styles. And the styles will be styles.input. We need to define the styles here on the bottom. So React Native style. And for the input, what will we have there? Input. First of all, let's color the borders. Border width 1, just to see the sizes and how it is rendered on the screen. Border width. Let's import the style sheet as well from React Native here. So let's select an image, choose. Okay, we see it there. Let's make the border color a very light gray, called Gainsborough. Okay, that's better. I would like to add some padding, like 10 at least, or 5 is gonna be enough. And the width of 100%. Okay, that's good. For my view here, let's add the root style and bring the action. Bring these styles here in the root. Because I want to add some padding 10, not to touch those. Alright, so what else? I'm gonna also bring the styles for the image from here to styles.image, just to have everything clean here. And for the image, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna add some margin vertical to add some space. Margin vertical 10. Okay, that's better. And some border radius to border radius 5 to our input here. Okay, for the input, yeah, we have an input. Now our goal is to keep track of what is the user typing there. So to keep track of the value that the user is typing in the text box, we are gonna save a title in the state. State title is gonna be a state variable. Initially is gonna be an empty string, and we're gonna send this state variable as a value to our text input title, And whenever the text input will change, so on change text, or yes, on change text, we're gonna update it in our state using the set title setter. Now, if I do that and if I write something, I see the values, and also I will have access to this title whenever I will press submit. And for the submit, we need another button. So let me just copy this button from here, add it after the text input, and say submit. On press will be on submit, that we need to declare as a empty function. So now if I go here, upload pin, choose, I can write something and press submit, and we will call this function. And in the next video, we are going to upload, first of all, this image to the cloud, the image that you see here. We're going to upload to our storage layer in the cloud, and after that, we're going to create the pin in our database layer. But that's gonna come in the next week, in the next video. Now, create a pin screen. So the last thing that, yeah, like as you said, would be nice to do, let me see in the components Masonry list, is the ability to have dynamic number of rows for this Masonry list. So how would we do that? Oh, I know. I think I know. So we're gonna have a property called number of rows, and by default is gonna be equal to 1. Okay, let's do 1, or let's do 2 at the moment. So number of rows is 1. Or it shouldn't be the, let's not receive it as a property, let's get it here, because I think we will calculate it. We will calculate it right away here based on the width. So number rows equal to. Now, instead of rendering 2 columns here, we have to render them dynamically. So we have to, based on the number of rows, we have to render that many columns. So if it's 2, we need 2. If it's 3, we need 3 of them. So how to do that? Well, we will create in JavaScript, that's tricky to create an array with a specified length. So I'm gonna Google it. JavaScript create array of X elements. It's with array from array number. Okay, so array dot from and array of array length. The length will be number of rows. So now we have this array that we can map over, and for every column we are going to render this column. Now I can delete everything else here because we are rendering them dynamically. The problem is that now it's all of them are like this. Okay, and here we should say if index divided by the number of rows, not by 2, but the number of rows, is equal not to 0, because 0 is the first column, but is equal to the column index. So column index will be 0, 1, or 2. Okay, now it works, right? And if I simply do one column, it will work. If I do two columns, it will work. If I do three of them, it still works. And if I do four of them, it still works. And as you can see, the order as well is maintained. Like, check the order of these items and you will understand, yeah, it's maintained. So that's the dynamic way of doing it. So in this case, we don't need actually the column, only the index, right? Yeah. So now let's display three columns when the list is when the device allows it. So because the number of columns will be dynamic, let's add them to the state num rows, but not rows, number of columns. Set number of columns equal use state 2. And let's replace them here. Is this possible using a flat list? No, it's not possible. And I showed you previously how it looks when you render it with a flat list and you provide their number of columns too, because it doesn't work. It renders them in a grid way view. So it's not what we want. And now set number of columns. Let's do it like this. So const width equal, we need the screen width. Use window dimension dot width. So let's do console dot log width. What's there? So here is 390, but if I do rotate, come on, where? Rotate, rotate, rotate. I need rotate. Okay, it's here. Device, rotate right. It's 844. So let's decide that. Oh, actually, we don't need the state, you know, because we can calculate it right away. So if, let's say, const num columns equal, if width is less than 500, then we have two columns. Otherwise, we have three columns. The question mark is here. I'm already tired, and the double dots are here. So in this case, it's 2 because the width is 390 and it's less than 500. But if I'm going to do rotate right, we see them in a 3-column way. Another way would be to simply say divide number of columns is width divided by, I don't know, 150 pixels, and we do math.floor, or seal not to get below. So by doing this, we say that render as many columns as possible, but the column shouldn't be less than 150 pixels. So if I'm gonna do, you can play around with this, so you can say 200, or you can say 300, or 250. And in this case, now it looks like this. On an iPad, it's gonna look even better. So 350 probably is better. So let's do IO, keyboard, device, rotate left. And this one is done as well. So git status, git add everything, git commit, create pin, and dynamic calls for Masonry list. Okay, that's gonna work on the profile as well. Brilliant. Only downside is we go through the whole collection num columns times. Yes, I get what you mean. Yeah, because the filtering will still go through all of them. Let me think. Well, yeah, like one way would be to do this splitting array beforehand, and by doing that beforehand, you can pass only once, so your complexity will be the length of the array, not the length of the array multiplied by the number of columns. But yeah, like that's more advanced, and if you understand what I said, that's great. If not, that's not a problem. So please do not spam. Thank you. So guys, yes, that's everything. We have implemented our Pinterest clone. Come on. We have implemented our Pinterest clone with React Native and with the most important screens and features. We have done the home screen. Let me do it like this. Yes. So yes, as I said, we have implemented our Pinterest clone, including our home screen with a very beautiful Masonry layout, which displays the items with images in full aspect ratio with different height, variable dynamic height. We are able to press on any of them and we will be able to see them closer in a separate screen, and we can navigate back to the home screen from there. As well, we will be able to favorite and like pins that we enjoy, and they will be displayed here on your profile page. Where I don't know why the image is not shown, but I think yes, it was not loaded. But yeah, this list as well scrollable. We can look through them, we can see all of them. And lastly is the create a pin, where we will be able to select one image from our gallery. After that, we will be able to set a title and we will be able to submit the pin. We have finished all the UI in today's video, and as I said before, where is it? Come on. As I said before, next Friday, 8th of April, at the same time, 3 p.m. GMT, we are going to implement the serverless backend using nhost. In that video, we are going to do authentication to make sure that only authenticated users are able to use the application, and to also be able to create accounts, sign in, and so on. After that, we're going to do the GraphQL API. We're going to start by designing our data structure to know what data do we need to save in order to implement all the features that we need, including listing pins, uploading them, liking, and so on. And also we're going to implement the storage layer that we're going to use to store all the images. Now let's get into some questions and answers for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions specifically related about this build, I'm going to be happy to answer you. So write them in the chat, or you can also write them in the comments if you're watching this tutorial after the live stream. I want to thank you, nhost, once again for making this project possible. We're going to learn more about nhost, and we're going to see how easy it is to build backend applications for our mobile and web applications in the cloud. And yeah, it's pretty easy with nhost. Now I'm waiting for some questions and we can get the weekend started. If you're planning to have like a chill weekend, for me it's mostly gonna be a lot of work because I'm working a lot to wrap the course content up. I'm working on the production environment and preparing your application for production there. So it's a lot of work there, making sure to cover everything, including like security and how to create multiple environments and so on. So a lot of work there. That's probably why I don't have a voice. Hopefully I'll be able to record tomorrow. But yeah, so hello from Oman. Hello, Mohammed. So how did you find this build? I really enjoyed building this application. I really love the simplistic and minimalistic UI of Pinterest. It's a pleasure as a developer to build it. What API are we using with this? If you're asking about our backend API, we're gonna implement our own GraphQL API using an host. And Moon, thank you very much for your donation. And Moon is saying value packed as always. Thank you. I appreciate your support. That helps the channel. Alright guys, so if there are no more questions, then I wish you a very productive weekend or a very chill one if you decide so. If you found this video valuable and if you learned something new today, then please subscribe to the channel because that is helping us a lot here to grow the team, to grow the channel, to reach more people, and to help as many developers as possible to become independent developers that are able to take a project from zero, build it, and deploy it to market. We want to cover the whole process, both for front-end and back-end, because these are the necessary skills that you need nowadays as a mobile developer to be able to have options, to be able to build application yourself, or to build your startups, or even to join some companies if you decide so. So that's our goal with this channel. If you support it, like the video, subscribe, and let me know down in the comments what other projects you would like us to build here on the channel, and maybe someday we're gonna do it. So do it, the one with the most upvotes, we're gonna try to do it soon. So yeah, see you next Friday at the same time, the same place. Here we're continuing the Pinterest clone by implementing the backend. And with that being said, thank you very much. Here is the outro. You can check some other videos like this one and this one. While after finishing this video, you can check them. They're all amazing. So peace.